Else Rain presents Is Content Creators Relevant for Information with special guest Mr. Z. Broadcast October the 3rd, 2021. Enjoy.
The views expressed on Talk Real Solutions, hosted by Tyrone Thompson at TalkRealSolutions.com, are the views of Tyrone Thompson and do not reflect the views of TalkRealSolutions.com, YouTube, or etc. The content here belongs to Talk Real Solutions and its many contributors. Views and opinions expressed by all contributors belong to them and not TalkRealSolutions.com or Tyrone Thompson, the host, or etc. All data and information provided on the site is for informational purposes only. Talk Real Solutions makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information on this site and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, or delays in this information or any losses, injuries, or damages arising from its display or use. All information is provided on an as-is basis.
In a world where there's crime, corruption, violence, murder, rape, theft, and all forms of atrocity that plague the world in which we live in today, what you would say we are living in a state of chaos, undertake more greater or extremer chaos to restore the order in which the world we live in today. Good evening, Black people. This is Chaos right here. And today, stream. Some content creators, some names might be named here, possibly. But nonetheless, the information has to be examined as a whole, as a head of, or even to this particular stream that you're going to listen and witness today. But before I give you the title and my special guest, I would like y'all to go to TalkRealSolutions.com. There you'll see the 3-point plan for Black empowerment, Black achievement. And under the 3-point plan, you see a list of the Black established banks located near each city in America where a good portion or a heavy percentage of Black people populate, where you could go and create an account with a Black-owned business. A Black-owned bank in your vicinity. So all that information is located on Talk Real Solutions website, so check it out. Also, on the website, there's latest articles of current events or any news briefings that's going on across the globe. That's also on the website as well, including a donation tab if you want to donate to the website itself. So, like always, all the information and the donation tab is located on TalkRealSolutions.com. Check the website out today. Also, you can follow TRS on Facebook, titled TRS. Join the group on TRS where you potentially will get invited or add on to the private chat of Talk Real Solutions. A lot of information and a lot of things that's going back and forth is in the DMs. You get me? So if you want to engage in the conversation at hand, whether on this show or any other topic that's going on floating around the internet, join the page on Facebook, and you will see what's going on the DMs on Talk Real Solutions. And as always, Talk Real Solutions also on YouTube as well, same name. I think one thing, if Tom, last time I checked, he's revamping the channel a little bit, where now he's going to be start doing some uploads, short ones, some that are informative or educational. So, check out the channel on YouTube as well, and you'll see what he's uploading. He's doing a good job so far of a few uploads. Some of them very short, direct, to the point. So, like I said, if you like to see that, subscribe to that channel on YouTube as well. And like always, subscribe to Chaos Rain channel. As you know, I go by the name Chaos Rain. My channel on YouTube as well, where pushing on with the content. I have a list of episodes that you could possibly find on Chaos Rain channel from this channel and on my main channel as well that's not there. You find all the episodes on Chaos Rain channel. So if you like this particular content or any old previous content that you want to check out, subscribe to Chaos Rain channel today. Hit the red button and hit that top notification bell so you know where there's uploads and what do they call it? Uploads and live streams from my channel. Trust me, you will like it. And also, you can follow me on Twitter at ChaosRain7. And you can now add me as a friend on Facebook, titled Eric Green on Facebook. So, I'm all over social media. I'm easy to be found, very visible. So, check me out. And if you have any ideas or any show ideas or any comments and concerns about certain topics or certain things that you question or you have any other information that was said on my channel that's a little bit different or better or something that I have not looked into it, shoot me a simple response on the comment section on my channel or add me as a friend on Facebook. Either or, I will look into it. I do take time to look and read this stuff, so please do. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's it. All right. Now for the subject at hand. Let's pull this up. Let's look what's going on here. The subject for today's stream, Chaos Rain presents, is content creators relevant for information? And my special guest I have for the very first time, he goes by the name Mr. Z. So as I open the mic, Mr. Z, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Welcome, Mr. Z. Welcome for the first time here on the TRS Talk Resolution side of Chaos Rain channel.
Thanks for having me on.
Yes. Before we begin, I'd like to take a step back in the past, then take a step forward into this present, and to leap onward to the future. So for the first time here on TRS, tell people for the first time a little bit about yourself.
I go by two different names. It's Blackn Effect, or Mr. Z, and I'm slowly becoming a YouTube personality in the kind of black man space of YouTube. And I started, jumping on different people's lives, giving my commentary, giving my perspective. And I think I started that because I saw a space or a vacuum for men of my age, I'm 35 years old, who had a particular perspective on relationships between black men and black women, who had a working class background, who were maybe a little bit left of center. And I just thought that my particular worldview would be something that some people might find interesting. And I just wanted to come in with a different perspective because when I entered the space, it was a bunch of, I would call it, I am man, hear me roar. I can overcome anything. I am a Kryptonian. And I wanted us to kind of bring it back down. I wanted people to be a little bit more realistic with their worldview. And, I'm slowly making my way through, and, it's been an interesting I want to say I've been in this space for maybe 2 years, a year and a half to 2 years. And it's been an interesting ride so far. So, thanks for having me on, and hopefully I'll do a pretty good job tonight, and your guest will appreciate me.
Yes. Oh, trust me, you'll do fine. Trust me. One thing, Mr. Z and Black Effect, and let people know he is on YouTube now. So, like always, you'll probably, if you can, give me the name of the channel for email, if possible, for the description of this stream when we conclude. My thing, Mr. Z, to the subject at hand, is this irrelevance of information for many content creators on YouTube? What is your views of how you see information as a whole?
I mean, information can be used as a tool, right? Information, like knowledge, is like fire, right? You can use it to heat up a house. You can use it to warm up a baby bottle, or you can use it to burn something down, right? So information is normally, when we think about it, it's in a positive context. It's a good thing, usually. But there are people that weaponize information, or they withhold information. I mean, it's information as a whole is it's something that you can use positively or negatively, and it tends to have a more positive connotation when we say, well, do you have the information, or where's the information, or can I have the information? Usually when we think about information, it's something that has a positive context to, excuse me. So yeah, I don't have a negative view on information per se. Now, how we use information and the kind of black side of social media, now that's a whole different question.
Now, how I look at information today, as I look at it and take a step back, there is good information throughout the net. And there is a lot of misinformation also. And how I view it and see it from my perspective as a whole, that there are pretty much more of a sense of disinformation than actual information that people can really take and use and run by it without doing further investigation. I think case in point, we talk about the average income of not only black males and black females, but Americans in general. I just did a stream not too long ago, and I just looked at the numbers that from what Mr. Egmore has said, yeah, the average right now is for Americans that's, I think, over 75% of Americans, they're not even grossing $43K like that. Some are grossing, depending on the race, some can range from 36 to 24. And I'm thinking that they said the medium is roughly pushing 40 when it comes to black men, and an extra 10 to 12K from non-black men. And they use as a parameter to say this is the medium for Americas, that you're in the middle, so you're in a good spot. But when we look at the information and really dig into it, that is not to really analyze it and depending where you live, that's not considered middle class in America, especially now in the 21st century. You just barely getting by, if we want to really be honest. And I've noticed a lot of black men, unfortunately, have been pushing this for some time and think this is good and cool and this should be the norm. And I'm saying that you as a man, if that's where you just go sit comfortably, and especially in America, depending where you live, that this is okay, then you shoot yourself in the foot. And in time, if you think you're going to go through, depending if you're 25 and older, this is how you want to remain, and think that you're going to prosper or sustain yourself in the long term in this capitalist system. What you say about this, Mr. Z, in regards to this, the numbers, from what you view and you see it?
So I tend to judge things off of median more than average, because the average gets pulled up by the wealthy, especially when we start speaking about income and wealth, right? So the median income, from my understanding, last time I checked, which is like 2 days ago, the median income for men in America, that's all men, that's not controlling for race, is somewhere around $38,000 to $39,000 a year, somewhere in the middle of $38,000 and $39,000. That's all men in America. For women in America, it's around that $25,000 a year mark, and this data was as of 2019, right? So you said something about disinformation earlier, and disinformation is defined as false information which is intended to mislead. And I think oftentimes in this space we have sometimes well-meaning people, sometimes not well-meaning people who have a very difficult time dealing with, like you said, us living in a capitalist system, and it essentially being a pyramid scheme. And it was designed on purpose for the people at the top to not only just have wealth and not just only have money, but to have a preponderance of power that goes along with that wealth and the influence that goes along with that wealth and the ability to sabotage, hold back, and make difficult the rise of others behind them, right? And I think oftentimes in these spaces we have a hard time coming to terms with that. And I'm tying that to your knowledge about income, right? Once again, to run through some of the numbers, half of Americans earn about $31,000 a year or less. You know, what we know is that there's a wealth calcification going on in America, which means the wealth is going to the top and it's staying there. So the term "the rich get richer and the poor get poorer" is very evident at this current moment in time. And when we think about wealth and when we think about income, we need to understand wealthy people don't just have the money. They have the dreams that goes along with the money, right? For every billionaire you see, you have to think of them as like a pillar of $1 billion, that if that pillar was to come down some, that $1 billion would spread out more, right? So you're just watching it. There's something like 2,800 billionaires on the planet. America has something like 720 billionaires, something along those lines. Each one of those people that's a billionaire, it's wealth that you would have or wealth that your family would have. And I know a lot of people don't like to think about that in that way, but that is the way it is. It's a zero-sum game. When you look at wealth, understand that in many respects it's a zero-sum game. That person has it because you don't have it. You have it because somebody else doesn't have it. And I'll pause right there.
Excellent. And the call number for tonight's show is 712-770-4160. The access code is 917-324#. I repeat, 712-770-4160. Access code 917-324#. Tonight's subject, Chaos Reign presents, is content creators relevant for information? And it's my special guest, Mr. Z. Now, it's interesting you mentioned that the rich are getting rich and the poor are getting poor. Now, if we look into brief history of the upper and lower caste, you'll find that there's a correlation, that there was no such thing as what we like to call, or what we want to view as middle. Middle is just a created entity for maybe roughly over 70 years at best after World War II in America. From what, if people really go back in history, after we got out of the Great Depression of the 20s, and then the United States became that fiat currency back in the end of the 40s. Then the establishment of Israel in 1948, and it just, things were looking nice and high in America up to that time. Up until, we arrived in the first or second year of the 70s, where now they're starting to replace the standard that keeps this fiat currency strong, which is real currency, which is silver and gold. Now we start to see the dollar start to slowly inflate for now 50 years. Within let's say every decade. Let's say every 10 years. You know what I'm saying? And they're probably different depending on how we want to view how often the dollar is deflating, because they had to keep borrowing and they don't got nothing to replace it, Especially, we now know the military does keep this dollar really strong. And everybody knows if your military is not strong, then if you don't have nothing to offer to other nations, your economy will completely crash. Because everybody has to use this fiat currency to give it value. And people understand any form of material where people are exchanging goods, people are the ones that give it value. So, in short, what I'm trying to say is that it's always throughout history there's always a top and upper class. And now you're seeing in present day that we are slowly going back to that. And now because Americans, the position where they're at now, we're in globalization, that it's possible that you could make possibly six figures in this capitalist world. And that's just possible, depending on who you know or what you're doing. But overall, not everybody in America that dealing with the average or median, like you said before, Ms. Z, is going to get there, make it there, because the whole purpose of this capitalist system is to squeeze every ounce of money out your pockets for them to keep for themselves and make their pockets fat and make themselves fatter as well. So, in saying, as you know now, people, that if you understand how systems really work and what the history of not only money but how classes are structured in here, you have a clear idea of what's really going on if you're paying attention. But you were about to say something, Mr. Z? I heard a guess.
Yeah. So, you know, you spoke about the content creators and whether they're needed for information. So, I think content creators, they provide a particular perspective, and there are many people that maybe aren't confident in their abilities. They may not be so as articulate as they would like to be, and so they have these biases and they have this perspective, and they would like to hear it regurgitated back to them, but by someone that might be a little bit more articulate, someone that uses 4 and 5 syllable words. And what these content creators do is provide that service, right? So think of it as I have a particular worldview, I have certain things I believe in, and I may not be great at expressing that. And I have a friend or a family member that I would like to speak to about these type of things. And then I find someone online that believes in much of what I believe in, or at least expresses much of what I believe in, but they say it in a way, or they express it in a way that is palatable to the people that I would like to have this message, I would like to give this message to. And so I think that's what a lot of content creators do on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, whatever social media site you happen to frequent. And I think that's oftentimes that's what it's about. It's, we have our own worldview, and what the actual kind of sad part of what the internet has allowed is an echo chamber, right? Where your ideas aren't often challenged. You huddle up with other people of like mind, and you guys regurgitate the same ideology to each other over and over and over again. So the content creators help to facilitate that. And so I definitely agree with you that just getting the information, of course not, many of these content creators would not be needed for that, but what they are often, and I'm doing air quotes on the word needed for, but what they are needed for oftentimes is to provide, a certain gravitas to it, or a certain weight to it, especially if you're speaking about somebody that actually has credentials, a doctor, an attorney. Let's say me and you were in an argument, and I had a particular perspective, and there's someone on YouTube who thinks just like me, but they happen to be an attorney. And I would send you that video and says, see, Chaos, this person says the same thing I say, and appeal to authority to a certain respect. And I'll pause right there.
All right, good. Hold on. One second, people. All right. Man, what's this? Let me refresh this. One thing I would say, that there are a lot of content creators that put out a whole lot of information about the situation of not only the West, but the economic situation of where people are at and where potentially we are going. What content creator that drew you more into certain information that made you start to really think through of your reality? If you can name a few.
That's a long list. There's obviously BGS Immore. There is Yvette Carnell. There is Antonio Moore. There is a couple of the more newsy things I watch. Al Jazeera Plus, Al Jazeera, RT News, Vox, you name them. I'm just like I can go through them. I used to watch The Hill. There was a show called Rising with Sagar and Crystal. I would watch that. One of them is Indian descent, and it is more of a right-leaning political thinker. The other, Crystal Ball, she is more left-leaning, white American woman, and I just would like to see them have the conversation from two different perspectives, but they were very, very rarely contentious, right? And that also provided me with a certain perspective. Especially, it was oftentimes very data heavy, which I love. Yeah, so I can go on forever with that. Just name something outside of kind of mainstream media, the ABCs, the CNNs, the Foxes. And at one point I did consume that media, so I'm not speaking as if I'm above it. But as I got older and I wanted to know the numbers, right? I wanted to know what the median house value was. I wanted to know what the average American, or the median American, better yet, was living, what their financial reality was, right? And when I got into that mode of thinking, I seeked out the information, and so I found myself surrounded by the people and the media conglomerates that I've mentioned. And are these people biased? Pretty much all of them are. Are those media apparatus that I spoke of biased? Pretty much all of them are. But what was important to me was to get the information and then think of it for myself in what I believed, right? But the median income, that's easily, anybody can Google that and look that up. The median house price, anyone could look that up and find that out. Let's say how many Americans went to private school? How many Americans, how old were they when they purchased their first car? How old were they when they purchased their first house? All of those things give you a picture of what people are actually living, not what you think they're living, right? And yeah, so like I said, the BGS, the Yvette Carnells of the world, the Antonio Moores of the world, Thomas Shapiro, who else can I mention? Richard Wolff. It's just a lot. Richard Reeves, who works for the Brookings Institute. Richard Wolff is an economist. All these people that I'm mentioning. Who else? Yuval Noah Harari, who's an Israeli historian. And all of these people, they give you just bits and pieces of things, and you put that together and you get your puzzle, right? For me, information, and I guess this ties back to your question about information earlier, information are like puzzle pieces. And as you acquire more information, it gives you a better outlook on the masterpiece that you're trying to create, because it's one puzzle piece. You find out, let's say, like I said earlier, the median income for people. Okay, that's one puzzle piece. You find out, what the average age of people that are getting married for the first time. That's another puzzle piece. When are people purchasing their first homes? That's another puzzle piece. What's the income for divorcees and all that? Just a bunch of different things, and you get these puzzle pieces together, and it just paints a picture for you to give you a perspective on your own life, and then the life that most other people are living. And so those people that I mentioned and those entities, they've helped me to, progress through life way more confident in myself. And and way more realistic about what's actually going on in the world around me. And I'm sorry for being so long-winded, but I'll pause right there.
No, that's good. That's good. I want you to lay it out because this is a very important question that a lot of people don't really ask the question because, let's be honest, Mr. Z, majority of Americans, we consume a whole lot of content. Majority of content we consume now through a bigger outlet, media outlet now, like a YouTube, is where we get our information as a whole now. We don't get information through podcasting like we used to. Hell, we don't get information through certain alternate media like the Fox News, CBN, all this stuff, which are okay outlets, but overall, when you listen to the journalism over there and the information put out, it's always questionable, which a lot of people don't use a lot of critical thinking to what they're really listening into, what they're saying, the words, the key phrase, the coded language, if we want to use that. And like always, if someone never did a little class on basic journalism, they always ask the few phrases or questions: who, what, when, where, and why. I'm just throwing that out. People could probably give a better definition, but that's what comes to mind. That you always gotta conceptualize why they putting this information out, what's the purpose, where, dates. Dates are very important. A lot of people don't understand dates are very important in a lot of things, including statistics, which that brings me to the next section. That do you think, when it comes to us as people, are we really using statistics in a way to better us as a people, or are we using it more of a weapon towards each other? That's another question.
Ooh, that's a good question. So that's a good question. So I think two things about this. Yeah, it really is a good question. I'm of dual minds on this. I think oftentimes in the Black community, information, statistics specifically, is used. It is weaponized against other Black people. Yes, that does happen. But also tied to disinformation, statistics taken out of context is also used to prosperity pimp Black people, right? And when you combine being hit upside the head by certain Black people who weaponize statistics against you, and then being hit upside the head again by other Black people who use statistics to kind of give you this prosperity pimping, Oprah the Secret, think it and it will happen type of worldview, that I think that causes for very delusional Black people. So that's my way of answering your question. I do think it's oftentimes, not all the times, maybe not even most. We can make an argument about whether it's most or not, but a significant amount of time it is used as a weapon against other Black people in the Black community. Statistics are, and I do think that we can do a better job, right? And like I said, oftentimes these stats are taken out of context. Sometimes they're old, and quite frankly, statistics that are anything more than about 10 years old, you need to update it. And your stats, usually you want to have them within the 5 to 10 years max period, right? When you start talking about things that, numbers from 20 years ago, if you're not trying to make a historical argument, then 20, 30, 40 years ago, you might want to be careful with that. And then even with that, once again, if you don't put those statistics in context of the time or the era that you're speaking of, then you can kind of get into some dicey situations. But, once again, I'm sorry for being long-winded. Go ahead and pause.
No, don't worry about it. In here, you could be as transparent and as real as you can. And if it takes you a while to get off the thought, that is fine. You see, one thing I will let you know, Mr. Z, to a lot of people don't understand, on Chaos Rain channel, I'm going to probably express this, and I forgot always when I do these streams and these broadcasts and these podcasts. The average attention span for the human is under 5 seconds. That is no good. You cannot absorb or gather or have understand what you're hearing or what you're seeing under 5 seconds. Like always, as Chaos Rain, I'm here to raise your attention span so it exceeds 5 seconds. Because God knows your attention span raises and moves further to things that entertains you or things that doesn't have no value in your life. You could easily keep an attention span longer than 5 seconds. So damn sure you could have an attention span longer than 5 seconds to information like this. So no excuse, people. No excuse. Anyway. What else I'm about to think of saying? To the females, what content creator, of any, in your opinion, brings forth what we like to call misinformation, or what I like to call disinformation, to viewers or podcasters, from your perspective? Hold on.
My apologies. Was that directed towards me, Chaos?
Yeah, that's question. Yes.
Okay. So
do you want to repeat the question?
No. So you're asking me. No, it's okay. You're asking me what women have I seen that give misinformation? That's a list. Okay.
Yeah. Take your time. Think good on this. I don't want you to just take your time. Think on this. Cause I see one thing. The reason why I'm expressing this is the first time I really cover any of this, is we're gonna be just blunt honest, and because you just like me, cause I've seen what you have done and what you have bring forth in this space is very relevant. And mind you, because, and I don't know if you told people before, listen the first time, you are what we call Haitian descent, correct?
Yes.
So obviously, like the fighting and warrior spirit of the Haitians, they not only would keep it real with you, but they have a fire spirit that they have no hold, no bars, because they have gone through worse, like some of the other ADOS people back in the 1800s. And we look at history, when the first wars broke out, at first, I could be wrong, my date's wrong, I think it started from Haiti first, and it trickled down to here in the west of America, or it could be America, then Haiti. But the point is this, that there's always a fighting spirit for certain blacks, because we all black, but there's a certain type of mankind and spirit in us that we just not going to hold our tongue. We're going to keep it real. So go ahead and answer this question.
Okay, so there are a number. I mean, I stumbled upon, I think her name is Deborah something. Deborah, can't remember. It's an older black woman. She had a stream a few weeks ago about divesting. I listened into that. I heard a bunch of misinformation. I've listened to Cynthia G, heard a bunch of misinformation. Chrissy, misinformation. Lexus Exodus, misinformation. I mean, we could go down the list of them. The young lady that was on the Deborah Woman's panel, Sister Toja, which, by the way, is supremely disrespectful of a name, because she got that from Sister Soldier, who was about black people, including black men. So for you to rip off her moniker and her name and call yourself Sister Toja, and then advocate for black women to divest from black men, that's the height of disrespect. But yeah, so there were a list of women, and the misinformation and the disinformation and the lack of information. It's the reason why it's troubling, because once again it puts people in a state of delusion, and you send people out into the world woefully ignorant to the fact that much of what we see happening in the black community is echoed outside of the black community. But because most black people live around other black people, and you might occasionally work with non-black people. You might have non-black associates, maybe a handful of non-black friends, but for the most part, black people live around black people. Your family is obviously black people. You don't really know. And a lot of these people, I give them this, they're very disciplined at keeping whatever dysfunction is happening in their communities close to their chest, right? So many black people don't know what's going on in the Latino community or what's going on in the East Asian or South Asian community, what's going on, for people that are maybe Central Asians or whatnot. So you don't really know how much of the world has changed. And I like to start the world this kind of modern era that I think of. I like to start it around 1975, maybe 1980. And there's a reason for that, because I think with automation kicking off so much and with machine learning kicking off so much, and then obviously later on in the 2000s with social media kicking off and the impact it had, it's changed the world so fast that what you find oftentimes is a lot of people, not just black people, haven't caught up to the fact that the world's changed so quickly over the past 4 or so decades, definitely over the past 2 decades. And people can barely catch up. So their rhetoric and the way they speak is as if we're still living in the 1970s or the 1960s, right? So my granddad used to do this. My grandma used to do this, right? This is the way you're supposed to take care of a household. This is the way a woman is supposed to comport herself. This is the way a man is supposed to comport himself. And it's as if they didn't see what happened over the past 40 plus years, right? And so tying that to your question, oftentimes the particular women that I mentioned, they speak as if they don't understand that the game is rigged and you're playing musical chairs. And so as women enter the workspace, as women climb up the corporate ladder, that is literally a space that a man would occupy, right? So if you're looking for Mr. Provider Protector, you literally might be doing Mr. Provider Protector's job, right? If you have the corner office at a law office, that's a position that a man could have held. So when you're looking for, same thing for much of the men, right? If you can do certain things for yourself, then and it's not something that your grandfather or great grandfather used to do, then you have to understand that you might be taking on certain traditional roles that a woman would have done, right? And people have a difficult time dealing with that, right? Even for people my age, I'm 35 years old. People my age and younger, even though we weren't around to see some of these traditional roles played out, we still the fume is still in the air for that particular behavior, even if the society doesn't necessarily allow for that too much. And I'll give one point to that, and I'll pause. Like I said, the median income for men in America is something like $39,000 a year. That means that in most of your major cities, men that are making that or less, which is, once again, at least half of men, are out of the picture if you're looking for that provider male, right? And I think when you hear these particular women that I mentioned speak, they have a difficult time pairing what they're talking about and how they insult black men with this misinformation with the actual data, right? Well, y'all are not protectors and providers. Y'all are not providing. Well, would you say that half of American men aren't providing if they're only making less than $40,000 a year, right? And speaking about BGS, we were reading an article last night that said that 42, 44% of Americans don't even clear $20,000 a year, right?
Yeah,
so
very frightening. Very frightening. Yeah.
And that was according to the Brookings Institute. So if that's true, assuming that is true, how do the women that I mentioned, how do they reconcile that with black men, right? How do you reconcile how you insult black men for not being industrious enough, not being go-getters enough, not building enough, not, just how do you reconcile what is happening in America and in the Western world writ large with how you attack black men? How do you juxtapose black men to these other group of men that are supposed to be doing better when we look at the data, they may not actually be doing that much better, if better at all, right? So, I'll pause right there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. And this is how I look at it. If this is capitalism, which we live in right now, and there's no balance besides outside of capitalism, and it's funny, Cerulli and I had this conversation on earlier in my streams, how Asia operates in a balanced way using social and capitalism, but the problem is if you're an Asian man and you are a billionaire, you are still bound by China. There are some rules you only could do. If you go outside the order, there is consequence where you will lose your life. And that's something I might have to do some further research, because there are people that are so-called Asian billionaires in China that have lost their life because they're not following the rules of the dictatorship of China. You get me? In America, you could be a billionaire and a criminal, and you will get a slap in the wrist if you're caught in the act. There's no consequence, which means death, for non-black people, aka Caucasians in America. This is a safe haven for them in this capitalist world. You could do all bad by yourself and still come out good if you have the right network. Yes. But if you're any other besides them, the ceiling is pretty much doom and gloom. Go ahead.
So no, I'm sorry, Chaos. I thought you were asking me a question if there's anybody else besides the women I listed. I'm sorry. Continue. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. If you have anything else, please lay it out. Yeah.
No, not about the women in particular, but you did mention capitalism, and I wanted to talk to your audience about the particular brand of capitalism we're practicing, right? The free market, the neoliberal brand of capitalism. And, for those of you that don't know, neoliberalism, political ideology, neoliberalism is contemporarily used to refer to market-oriented reform policies such as eliminating price controls, deregulation of markets, capital markets, better yet, lowering trade barriers, and reducing, especially through privatization and austerity, state influence in the economy. In other words, taking the rules apart. No more guardrails when you bowl, right? What that means then is that everybody is at a free-for-all until you reach the legal limits. And like Chaos was saying, if you have enough money, even when you pass the legal limits, you get a tap on the wrist, you pay your little fine because you got caught frauding people, or you got caught taking houses when you weren't supposed to. You got caught dealing with drug dealers in South America. By the way, banks did get caught doing that. You get a little tap on the wrist, you get your little fine, and you continue as business as usual, like nothing happened. I would argue, and this is what I like to tell people, that is not just a political ideology, and it doesn't just stay in economic land. That is something that trickled down to everything. So we deregulated relationships, right? This is why there's no rules anymore to courting and to the intricate dance that men and women have been doing on this planet for ages, right? And I think we're wrestling with what that means, what it means to live in a world where not all people, but most people are freestyling when it comes to relationships, especially in the Western world, especially in the post-industrial world. What does that mean? And I think when we listen to some of the women I listed earlier, when we listen to them railing against men, I don't think they factored in that this is what came with modernization. This is what came with neoliberalism, right? So they're reacting, or better, they're reacting to something without fully understanding, or at least pretending like they don't understand why the things are the way they are, right? And I'll pause right there.
Yeah. My thing is, a lot of people, if we want to be honest, people really don't want to know why things are. They just know it works, whether it works for their betterment or not. They don't question it because, like everything in human beings, you need the necessities to sustain yourself: food, clothing, shelter. All the other details is irrelevant to the average person, man or woman. As long as they can meet two or all three, they're fine. Think about our people, Mrs. Z. Why do you think black people have not done what's necessary to change their economic situation and their outcomes in the West America? Because they're comfortable. All the needs that sustain human beings is actually met. And if it's not really met, you see a constant shift on how black people do certain things differently that will have a reaction to this nation to make them change what they're doing towards black people as a whole. My thing is that the ladies that you mentioned, some I recognize, some I do not recognize, that how I look at it, they had to sell you misinformation because it's profitable. Just like when you're sick, do you think that it's going to give you a sure, quick fix and then send you off away? No. They're going to give you something that's going to patch you up for a while, for years, maybe decades. After a while, when the body starts to reach its apex, it stops functioning and it malfunctions and it stops and it shuts down. And that's the end of you as a person. But they made hundreds or thousands of dollars off you during the process of your degeneration of your body, instead of correcting the problem. And that's how you look at with any consequence, especially women that puts up any information, misinformation especially, that you have to think like that as a man and woman, that anytime you listen to any content for whatever reason, you always got to put in mind how this affects the whole and what is the real tension, who's pulling the strings, who, what, when, where, and why, and what is the outcomes, point in the figures of the opposite gender or just the group in general, to saying the shortcomings of why you have this issue. You get me? Laying down will not save you, ladies. Shacking up and playing the concubine, if you are doing that already, will not save you. You know what's necessary, what you must do. And I remember you just, with his rant, that passion rant, I did listen to it more than once now, that if you're keeping malnourished your boys that will become men, what outcomes are you trying to produce with this behavior? Are you hoping that these males going to come out your womb, like you said, that you bring forth the world and civilization between the legs or out your pussy, that it's supposed to come out with something golden? No. You got to put in work, bitch. Most other races of women, regardless if they got comfort or not, they know the necessity of putting the emphasis on boys. Why do you think your school system changed the way it did back in the 70s to start throwing in these non-black teachers? Because they know said if I put the influence and instill certain things in them, I got their mind completely. Most of your innovation up to the 70s, and there's still innovation by blacks today, not much, but there were up to the point up the 70s. All that was when you, as a group, were teaching your own, regardless if you had the resource or not. They see black people talking, communicating, teaching, and was able to distill not only discipline, but a likeness to see that you had the capability of being me or doing what I'm doing even better. Now you don't see the liking of yourself doing anything positive or successful unless you see something on TV, which lies in the realm of entertainment, sports, rapping. That is the view of success for every black male, especially to come out the hood, that they have to fall under those few criteria, those few genres. Anything less than that, you're not going to see them do anything what we call average, or we could say above average work. So doing this, you are setting yourself back, and you set your children, that the males in your group that's supposed to carry forward this race, back heavily. And I'm not saying someone will come out the cracks, but how we're going and where we've been going for a couple of decades is not effective and it's not working. So to sit there, put out the information, you had to look at yourself in the eye that what role I put in to keep miseducating and malnutrition my boys. Rather, I could stay home and do it or not. It's a sacrifice. And I'll be honest with Mrs. E, if you look at the modern woman today, I don't think they're not willing to make the sacrifice, do what's necessary to bring the best out of their children.
Well, they're conflicted, right? I mean, you live in a society that promotes hyper-individuality, but hyper-individuality has its limits. How are you a hyper-individual in a relationship? How far can being self-absorbed, selfish, and self-interested, how far can that get you in life? It can do some, you can get somewhat far, if you worship yourself and if you care about yourself that much, but there is a wall, I think, that people run into when you don't do things for something bigger than you, for more than just you yourself, for more than just your pleasure. And what we're dealing with and what we're going to see happening, I would argue more and more often, is what does it mean when you actually get what you want, right? So speaking to what you're saying, the sacrifice, right? Okay, we understand, like what Washington Post put out, college enrollment is 60-40 split woman-man. There's nothing wrong with that on the surface. Okay, women are getting more educated than men. Until you realize that women usually practice assortative mating, or they tend to date and marry up. Well, what happens when at least educationally, maybe not income yet, but educationally, women are more educated than men, and that is increasing, by the way. That is not something that is likely to turn around anytime soon. So what happens, because men tend to date down and across, women tend to date across and up. I've often asked this question, and often it's in jest, but it's a serious question tonight, which is, what happens when you are the up, ladies? Can you deal with that? Can you deal with that responsibility? And what we're finding more and more is a lot of women are saying no. And I think that's okay. I don't think that everyone needs to be in a relationship. I don't think that everyone needs to have children. I don't think that just because you have money or whatever, you should have children just because. So, but we're going to see more people, especially women, with this kind of self-inflicted loneliness and misery, right? They're going to have the material things that they want oftentimes, but not so much kind of the intangible love and adoration and just having someone there with you, through certain tough times. And I don't know if we've built a society where women lead in certain respects and they're okay with taking on what comes with that leadership, what comes with that responsibility, right? Because we, growing up in America, and being a millennial, you can see that much of the system was grooming men to play second place to women, which, that's perfectly okay. All right. But what we didn't do was groom women to hold that position. So we groomed them to get the education. Okay, cool. We groomed them to maybe have certain high positions or middle management positions throughout the nation. Okay, cool. But we didn't groom them to deal with the responsibility of what that means in overall society, and then what that means in relation to men in their intimate lives, right? In their sex lives, in their dating lives, in their in their lives. And so what you're seeing in many respects is kind of this, well, I understand that I'm part of the top 5%, but why is my pool so small? And it's like, but you're in the top 5% and you only want to date in the top 5%. That's why. The men in the top 5% date across the board, right? you're part of the top 5%, you only want to date within the top 5%. In all honesty, you only want to date the 1%. That's why your pool is so small. And I think that's what it's unfortunate. It really is, because what I think is going to happen is we're going to see more and more people, and we use the term die alone, and we kind of throw it around in this space kind of flippantly, but we're going to see people die alone, oftentimes with self-inflicted loneliness. It's because you refused to kind of make it work with someone that in your mind you deemed is lesser than you. And so you said, if I can't have the Benz S-Class, then I don't want a car at all. Right? I don't want a Camry, which is reliable and it's going to last me 250,000 miles, 300,000 miles. Right? If I can't have the Benz S-Class, I don't want a car. And that's what we're seeing happening more and more. And I think, and I'll end with this because I know I'm rambling. I think what we're going to have to prepare to see is these people getting older in age and passing away and never having children, even though they had all the supposed, requirements to have those children. We're going to see them, dying alone, even though they had all the things that we say in this society should afford you, a happy life with a family, because, the unintended consequences of success is that you might want even more out of your life than quite frankly you can afford, or that you might have found yourself without a chair in the musical chair game, and instead of you going to a different room and getting a chair, you decided to just sit on your hands on the floor, and I call that an adult temper tantrum. And some adults are throwing temper tantrums, and that's perfectly okay, and I'm kind of somewhat rambling right now. I'll go ahead.
Excellent. The call number for tonight's show is 712-770-4160. The access code is 917-324-POUND. I repeat, 712-770-4160. The access code is 917-324-POUND. Tonight's subject, Chaos Rain presents, is content creators relevant for information, with Mr. Z. And like you said before, Mr. Z, yes, excellent. My thing is this, that dying alone. Some women, and I say some will take that as an insult. Some will take that as a scare tactic, and some will be just flat out scared. But nonetheless, if they are projecting our communities from our side of the society, that the sisters, the black woman, is going to be 1 in 4 now around this time, and next 4 or 5 years is going to be now 1 in 5, that you're traveling now under 20%. Even if you have the options to go outside the community, if you can. If only 1 in 4 you're going to get married, that means overall, depending how you look, how you keep yourself, and how you carry yourself, you're still going to get picked by a pool of the 74% of Americans. No matter what your so-called status is or what career you have, you're going to be picking that pool. Because anybody is at the same range, economic or status, and maybe above, are not really inclined to be dating and procreating people that's a woman that's almost in the same field on the average. They go find and import their pool now. What I mean by this, Mr. C, if you notice, a lot of men now are exploring their options, looking for mates outside America that has not been westernized. Are you aware of this?
My apologies, Chaos. Yes, I am aware of it, and
okay.
Continue with that, because I actually have something to say about that actually too.
Yeah. So my thinking is this, that, and let's be honest, people are going to do what they're going to do. You know, me and yourself, I'm not advocating for most of our people, black people especially, to be dating out. And there's many reasons. Some I prefer that we have problems, and that should be fixed in-house. And second to that, a lot of black people, as much as they want to hear it, you Negroes don't got the mentality to really deal with other race people, especially if you're going to create children with them. I'm seeing now the rise of these mulattoes, whether coming from the black male side or from the black female side, which is also there too, but they don't talk about it, that these children come out real messed up. And the reason why, because your self-hatred towards yourself is reflected to your seeds, to your womb that comes out of you. And you are fueling and advocating the same oppressive system that you bitch and complain about. And don't tell me that the men complain about it, because most of you women, depending on where you at, you complain about this fucking system too. You want a better comfort. You want to be like the European woman, the Miss Anne syndrome, all this nonsense. But you're not. Your best bet is a concubine, which they always had you here. And for the men that they want to date out, your position is the same way with this Caucasoid woman. I just saw a previous upload of some content creator talk about how one brother was flirting with a non-black woman, and this so-called simp Caucasoid went and I guess killed him or something. I don't know if that's what happened, but yeah. And he's going to do time in jail for that, for over some coochie that pretty much was never his. And I would tell most non-black men personally, you can go ahead and do what you want in this country, but let you know said that your woman's already messing around with other men and other races of men. That's evident now. That's not no secret no more. So if you feel that you're the only one and you should be entitled and all stuff, those days been gone for the last decade or more. And we have dating coaches and people that's been spitting game, teaching this stuff. I think from Donovan Sharp and all these other content creators, which I'm naming a few names. They've been telling you about your woman and women in general, the nature. And you're not learning. You're not peeping game. That's why in America, this is only soil that women can reign and do what the hell they want and get all the benefits and no consequences, unfortunately. People say there's consequences women. I say, name me a few consequences women really face in America. Can you name a few?
I can actually talk about that.
Okay, go ahead.
I think it's a long-term consequence, right? The consequence is you actually getting what you wanted, but you didn't count the unintended consequences. So it goes back to what I was speaking about earlier. What's the unintended consequence of getting the corner office at your job, right, where you're making $120,000 a year as a woman or $150,000 a year, right? What's the unintended consequence of being the manager and making, let's say, $70,000 at whatever retail store, wherever, right? What's the consequence to your now dating life? Because now you have a grandiose version or view of yourself. So the consequence, and when we're saying consequence, I'm not necessarily using it as a negative, right? I'm not putting a negative connotation to it, but I am saying the price of success, the price of getting what you want, right? There is something to that. And so I think women do have to deal with the consequences of the success. And oftentimes what happens is they don't know how to. They don't know how to, put together, okay, I'm a successful woman. I've gotten to this place. I make this money. I have this really nice apartment or this nice home. The only thing I'm missing is this family, and I do want a family. But I want to be, air quotes, a power couple. Well, how does that work in the 21st century where you're going to work for 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, and then your spouse is also supposed to be going to work for 12, 10 hours a day? So who's taking care of the kids? You see what I'm saying? So they are paying a price. I just don't think they understand it, right? For men, our lives oftentimes are very visceral in the things that we deal with. So we see it. We see what we're dealing with as it comes, right? You meet a girl, y'all start dating, you're paying. So you automatically see that you're paying, right? You see that you're paying for the dates, you're paying for this, you're doing that, you're taking her here, you're taking her there. It's very evident what the exchange that's going on your behalf, on your side. I think when it's more obscure, when you graduate college and you may have had one or two boyfriends, and then you into your career and you're making a significant amount, but you can't make it work with a man because maybe something about your personality, or you come off a little too strong, or it's more difficult to see that there's a cost to your success at that point. And it's not necessarily negative. It's that you are making it negative, because there's certain things that you want from a man now that most men don't feel. The vast majority of men don't feel, right? So your pool got smaller because of you. That was self-imposed. It's not because of your financial success. It's because you have these now expectations, and so there's a cost to that. So I think women are dealing with the cost. It's just a little bit more obscure than what men deal with, because ours is so much more blatant and in your face. And that's my long-winded way of saying that. I also wanted to speak on something earlier that you kind of touched on, which is we're going to have to be honest in the Black community, that especially the Black community, Black people that live in the U.S., that a lot of what we see happening in the Black community, it's because of the socioeconomic position the Black community found itself in. And so these things happened to Black people in America first, and they happened to us it was very rough. But these things are expanding out into the larger dominant American society and the larger globe, because this comes with modernity, right? This is coming with walking into the 21st century in a increasingly automated world, and an increasingly in a world with machine learning, the killing of unions, just think about the gig economy. And so this adversely affects Black people first, but it does trickle in, and you see this reflected in other countries. It does affect working class, poor, lower middle class people, which Black people in America tend to be, but in other places in the world, developed and post-industrial places in the world, you see that happening to their populations also. So, and I'm saying that to say Black people can't escape modernity by attempting to run into the arms of non-Black people. So let's say you do marry outside the race. What you will see is, if you didn't climb high enough up, your children will be suffering with what you thought you escaped, right? And you'll live to see them go through that. And if you're super lucky, your kids may have barely made it out, but then you'll watch your grandkids, if you're alive, go through it. Because we haven't came up with a new social game rule or a new social contract between men and women, people in corporations, the government and corporations, the government and people, because we haven't come up with these new social game rules, people are dealing with living in a modern era while still attempting to go off of the old social contract, and having to deal with the fallout of those things not particularly clicking together. And many of us are attempting to run out the Black community to save ourselves. And I would argue, one, it's not going to work for most of us. Two, even if it looks like it works, you're going to watch your children run into the wall that you thought you jumped over. And three, it's going to hit your grandkids most likely, because, what they say, a hard head make a soft ass, and we're going to watch as people refuse to reform the system and then deal with the consequences of being selfish and self-interested and not reforming that system, and watching it eat your children alive, and I'll pause right there.
And, you're right. Consequence for women is not always present, but it shows within time. You get me? And that's where the danger arises to a lot of women. You might not see the ways and the consequences of every action you take, because you don't feel that you should be uphold to some criteria, what we call what they call honest responsible. It deals with women. Damn, it slipped my mind now. Shit, it's like accountability in a way. You know, you hear a lot of dudes talk about this accountability, and women show accountability towards themselves, but we all know it's a little different because accountability leads to this consequence. You know, and I always hear women say that, well, men don't have no consequence or accountability. Yes, they do. As a system, there's jail, there's institutional like child support. There's many things that the society holds male, and if a woman doesn't really look and research that, I can't give no answer, sweetie, on that. You live in a box. You don't really understand how the world fucking works. Men are always held to accountability, whether he's married to you or not. There's consequences for men. And the story.
You know, I wanted to bring up another person, but this person I don't necessarily have a problem with. Love Dorsey, right?
Okay. Yes.
She had a video once where she was speaking about having a conversation with a young lady, and the young lady, you could tell, was very, very upset. And Dorsey. Love Dorsey was speaking to her and just trying to get her to calm down. And Love Dorsey was essentially trying to tell her, you wanted to watch your baby daddy fry. Y'all went to the courthouse. Him and the judge came up with whatever they had to come up with. The judge gave him a slap on the wrist, and now you're pissed off. You're livid because you wanted the judge to throw the book at him. And because the judge didn't throw the book at him, you're mad, right? And so I'm tying that to what you're saying by saying, when you hear people say that men are not accountable, what they're really saying is, I want to see the world break him. I wanted to see him crushed, right? And because he's not damn there on life support, because he's not considering committing suicide, because he's not, down to his last penny, I'm not happy. And so the accountability part, and it's not just a woman thing, right? You hear oftentimes men do this too. Whenever you hear the conversation about Sierra and Russell Wilson, it's, you did this thing, whether you're a celebrity or not, whether it's a person I know personally or not, you did this thing that I disapprove of. And because the universe or God or whatever you believe in, because they didn't crush you, I'm mad because now it doesn't look like life is fair. And I know life is not fair, but it's just so much more evident to me that life isn't fair because you didn't get crushed because of your decision that I disagree with. And once again, when you hear people say men like accountability or even that women like accountability, it's because life will eventually deal with that person, right? Karma is a bitch. We already heard that. Life will eventually deal with that person. But oftentimes we get mad because it's not what we would like for it to happen. What we wanted to happen was to watch that person just, be completely rock bottom, all the way down in the dumps. We wanted that person to be homeless. Right? We wanted that person to be down on their last leg. And because that's not what's happening or what's going to happen, we feel robbed. We feel robbed of the satisfaction of watching you fall. And so that happens. There's a lot of women, because maybe their baby daddy broke their heart or they wanted certain things, they expected certain things, and it didn't happen. They want to see that person crushed. And many of us don't even have the language for it. We don't want to admit that that's what we're thinking or that's what we feel. And that's why I brought up Love Dorsey. Love Dorsey spoke to that young woman for, I don't know, maybe an hour. And she was just trying to get her to, admit that's what you want. Because, if the judge didn't throw the book at him and he didn't do anything necessarily wrong to you, and you're saying he's not an abusive father and whatever, then your issue is that the consequence that you wanted him to suffer, he didn't suffer it. And so now you're pissed and you're trying to get me to say that there's something, extremely wrong with him outside of this little thing. And it's not. that's what I'm tying to what you're saying about accountability. Some people, it's not that we think they lack accountability, it's that we really want them to suffer, because they aggrieved us in some way. And I'll pause right there.
Well, my thinking, since you laid that out, and excellent, thank you, Mr. Z, for sharing that. It tells you the mindset of some of these females, that they're very ill, sick bitches that say, if you want the world to burn it yourself. But don't think that the system that you put your significant other under, or you want him under, that because the courts, and most courts when they go to file for grievances or whatever, 9 times time you might see a woman as a judge. They look at the information and do a critical analysis and come to the conclusion that this is what I'm going to slap him with a wrist for. That's it. Anything else that you want further, I'm not going to do, because I have to, like I said, abide by the rights of this man just like I abide by the rights of you as a woman. And for the constraint, depending on how this relationship ended or wherever grievance you're not set between one another, I must come in as the middleman and resolve your problems. And I can see why most black people, and my thing is this, most black people, they got to solve their problems without involving systems that we don't control. Because if you can't solve problems in-house, then damn sure you should not be in a relationship. Either you or her. Man and woman should not be in a relationship if you can't solve the simple things. And my opinion, a lot of counseling needs to come back into play in regards to resolve these little issues men and women have towards each other. You get me? Especially if you're producing children. Oh, look at the problem that's going to have on the seed. You get me? Because you're not able to co-parent or do things properly. That's a mental illness. And I think, like most consecrators, like, Mr. Samuels or anybody said it best, that therapy and getting treatment is a necessity in this community. You're not going to survive and thrive in the 21st century with your mindset and your trauma and place it on the burden on others. That's not going to work. You're going to get what you deserve if you figure go jump into one relationship into another. You're going to get, I'm not going to say it, but you know what's going to happen if you try to jump in and you have a certain mental illness. You're going to bring your demons to other people's business. And no one else wants to deal with it. From a woman that has issues, bring it to a new relationship. And the same thing with a man that has the same mental issues, bring it to a woman. No one else wants to deal with that. You get me? And I think we do a disservice as people when we have these problems, these traumas. We do this because we're hoping that somebody else is going to put up with our shit. And let's be honest, no one is willing to put up our shit, short term and even long term. That it is what it is, and that's just the honest truth. So now, let me look at the board. Anybody raise their hand? And you guys quiet tonight. Looks like y'all guys have no question. Y'all just sitting there listening to us talk. That's cool. That's cool. You know what I'm saying? I know that, this is a subject that's not, I guess, triggering enough. It's not, what we call it, entertaining enough in a way where, people are fighting. But nonetheless, it's good information and a good dialogue. Now, to shift gears a little bit, actually, let me ask a question about the males, because I already asked the woman's side. What consecrate in your mind from the men that you deal with or listen to content that's putting out misinformation from your perspective?
Woo, that's another one. Give me a second. Let me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll put you to work, Mrs. Z.
Ooh. Oh man. Okay.
Yeah.
This is gonna be difficult because I am tired. Okay.
And mind you, before you answer,
yeah.
don't be afraid, because this is all for not only entertainment but educational purpose. Because I want people to have a clear picture that if you're going to listen to any one of us that's consecrated, I've been an existing consecrated now for roughly 2.5 years. You just started a few months ago, and like I said, I'm going to help you in your journey in this consecrated, Mrs. Z. You know where to hit me up, But think good on this question before you answer, all right?
Yeah, I mean, it's... And excuse my background. Give me a second. Yeah, it's okay. There are people in, I think on the, if we're talking about the manosphere as a whole, there are definitely some of the white content creators that I vehemently disagree with. I think, but in the black manosphere, there are people I disagree with politically, right? And I disagree with them on what they think solutions are. So I think that's the best way for me to answer it. I disagree with a lot of the more right-leaning brothers in this space.
You mean conservatives? Conservatives?
Yeah, exactly. The black conservatives, the black tradcons, because I think we all somewhat agree on we all come to somewhat of the same assessment of what's going on, right? But then our solutions, I think that's when we start to get into some heavy disagreement, because I don't know if you can traditional or culture your way out of what's coming down the pike, especially if you didn't start at least 40 years ago, 30 years ago, right? Because I think if modernity is, we're watching like supposedly stable white families completely shred apart. This thing is even biting into what's going on in East Asia. I oftentimes bring up what's going on in South Korea with their population. I bring up what's going on in Japan with their population. I bring up what's going on in China. Why? First, those countries are on the other side of the planet. Secondly, they're very authoritarian countries, especially China. They're very conformist countries. And I bring them up to say what the difference between the Black American community and, let's say, and what's going on in Japan. In Japan and South Korea, it is very, 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 it's a faux pas to have a child out of wedlock. You just don't do that. You just don't. So guess what? They're just not getting married in the first place. Their birth rate is well below, and this is across the board in Western countries. Their birth rate is below replacement level so bad in South Korea. It's at 1 child per woman, where oftentimes it's supposed to be 2.1 child per woman so you can maintain your population in a country. Yeah. In South Korea, it's 1 child per woman. In Japan, it's something like 1.4, 1.5. The reason why I bring all of that up is to say, when you have conversations with tradcon black men, for those of you that don't know, traditional conservative, that's what tradcon means. When you have conversations with them about that, they have a difficult time understanding the point you're making, which is, no, not everything is screwed anyway. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is you first you have to rewrite the social contract, like I said before. Second, you have to acknowledge that this is not just a Black American thing. Now, are we responding correctly to what's going on in modernity? No. I would fully agree with anyone that says that. No, we're not. Is this hitting us a particularly negative way as comparison to other groups of people in the westernized or post-industrial world? Yes, that is absolutely correct. But even with that said, this thing is biting everybody's butt. And we refuse to acknowledge that with automation, with modernity, with machine learning, with all the things I've listed already, this is a thing. And so once again, I don't necessarily have names for that I could think of that I vehemently disagree with. I think I can just disagree with a particular ideology. And and by the way, even the women that I listed earlier when you asked me that question, I disagree with their ideology. And the difference between the men and the women is I think the women are woefully ignorant to what built the world that they wish they could go to, or what built the world for white women that they wish that they were politically and socially, right? I had a conversation with a sister on with a black Afro-Latina on a show called The Radical Latino, and this was a couple weeks ago. And we had a big back and forth, and I said this to her. I said, you want black men to go out there and be protectors, providers on the level that white men are. Okay, that's perfectly okay. But did you forget how white men got that power and that wealth? Did you forget how they got it? Did you forget how they were able to put white women on this pedestal? Did you forget? So do you want that blood on your hands? Because and when I speak, I'm very clear about this. if you want black men to put you in the position that white women are in, first of all, I don't think it's very possible at this point in time. But if it was, you're literally asking black men to go out and rape and pillage the planet just to put you on the pedestal of beauty standard.
Ooh,
just to provide and protect for you, you know?
Damn. Can you repeat that? I think it just went one ear and went out the other. I don't think that's clear. I want people to listen closely. I don't want them to close their right ear for a second, let the information stay in their brain. Go ahead.
If you want to be in white women's social, political, and economic position on this planet, then you have to be willing to have the blood on your hands when black men go out and rape and pillage the planet just to make you the beauty standard, just so you can be the Karen in the next 400 years, 500 years, calling the cops on some white dude just walking through a black upper-class neighborhood, and then he gets killed, right? Because that's what white people do, right? They see a random black dude walking through a solidly middle or upper middle class neighborhood. They call the cops on him. The cops might end up killing him, or at least they'll harass him or do something like that. So you want to do that. You want to be the lady at the park in New York calling the cop on the man because he told her, "Hey, could you put your dog on a leash?" You, in all honesty, let's be honest. Some sisters, some women of color, that's not even exclusive to black women. They want what white women have, which is the ability to destroy the planet just because they feel inconvenienced. They want the ability to destroy a person's life just because they feel a second of inconvenience, a second of feeling awkward, a second of fright or being scared for just a half a second. And there are women of color, and you know, on this particular thing, this is not exclusively a black woman thing. There are women of color, especially in the Western world, that are jealous of that. They actually want that type of social power, right? They want to be able to destroy someone's life for half a second of inconvenience, for half a second of feeling weird or being frightened. And I think that is sick. That is truly sick, but that's the world we live in. So, you know, I kind of went off on a tangent, but I think black men severely underestimate the fact that every once in a while you'll come across a woman that actually can articulate what I just said, and they'll admit it, but oftentimes they won't say what I just said, especially not how I said it. They're definitely not going to say it how I said it. But if you look at how they express themselves and how they insult black men, you'll see the insults towards black men is essentially saying, you didn't make me the white woman, and therefore you're weak. And tradcon men think that they can leave the black community and not eventually have their son being told the same thing in the next 20, 30, 40 years, or their grandson told the same thing. You know, and quite frankly, the way, from my understanding, the way where the marriage numbers are going, everybody's trying to marry white. At least in America, everybody's trying to marry white. That's the goal.
Yeah, that's
right?
the goal.
That's the goal. So, yeah, you might have black men marrying Latinas, but they're often the lighter skin, whiter skin Latinas. You know, you have the Asian girls chasing after the white dudes. You have the Asian dudes chasing after the white girls. You have, you know, the Latino men and Latina women mainly chasing after white men and white women. You have black women who, when they marry out, they overwhelmingly marry white men. Black men marry white women when they marry out at 60%. The 40% is other women of color. So for the most part, white is still the standard. And so I look at tradcon men like you're not as revolutionary, or you're not as different as you think you are. You know, I couch much of the conversation as just being American and being anti-black, right? And that's part of being American. That's been part of being American since its inception, which is, you know, we integrated into a racist system, and then what did you expect to happen? but some of your black children that come back home anti-black. And TradCon men couch their they couch their rhetoric as constructive criticism and stating the facts and tough love, which is, by the way, the same way the women couch their the way they speak. But all of it at the end of the day is just anti-blackness. And I'll pause right there. But to answer your question in a super long-winded way, I just disagree with a lot of these people's solution. I think you got to go at the system. I think you can individual your way. There are going to be a few people that works for, right? But for the most part, for the masses of people, regardless of race, if you're not talking systemic, then you're not really talking anything, because none of us, for the most part, have the power to just climb up that ladder into, the super upper echelons of success.
Excellent. The call number, again, is 712-770-4160. The access code is 917324#. Today's subject, Chaos Rain presents, is content creators relevant for information, with special guest Mr. Z. I have a caller, Mr. Z. Let's open the line and see what this caller has on their mind. All right, caller, open your line. Who's this?
Good evening. My name is Adawa, and I'm a black woman. And the black man is my man. All right, that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think that the black man would feel the same about his woman. So I've been listening, and maybe I'm listening to young men who are just getting out in the world. I don't know your ages or what, but you sound a little disconnected from who you are. Now, and I say this because you sound like you've disconnected from the community that you come from. I'm assuming you're a black man, Mr. Z. You don't sound connected to your community. And I guess my question for you is, why would you not protect your woman? The black woman is your woman, and she's divine. If you knew some history about your culture, and I'm assuming you're a black man, our ancestors wrote about the black woman and the black man in the highest esteem. In fact, she was depicted in the heavens with stars on her body. She was held up by the earth by her two pillars of heaven. Her breasts were covered with one hand. Her vagina was covered in the other. Heaven. And you know that's true, because y'all, that's what you brothers be going after always, is trying to get to heaven. When you were birthed, that's where you came from heaven. So it's about knowing who you are and valuing who you are as a black man. I would assume you came from a black mother.
Yes, ma'am. So the best way for me to answer the way what you were saying is, yes, I do believe that I belong to the black woman and the black woman belongs to me. I am in a relationship with a black woman. I am not married. I don't have any children, but I refuse to marry anyone if it's not a black woman. So, yes, what I'm saying, though, and this is what came with, I think when I speak, it's not necessarily that I'm advocating for certain things. I'm just stating the way things are that many people don't maybe not see. So the best way for me to answer some of what you said is, what came with the idea that we didn't have a particular role to play. Women didn't have a particular role to play, was that men didn't have a particular role to play. And so when we speak about protecting, which I agree with you, in my relationship, I make sure my woman believes that I will protect her, because I will protect her, right? But, and excuse my background, I am in the car right now. But, you know, I make sure she knows that. What I'm saying, though, as overall in the black community and in the Western world, to tell you the truth, the idea that men have this social obligation to women who told men that they don't have a social obligation to us is putting men in a trick bag where you're supposed to do this because you're a man, but I don't have any obligation to you. I don't have to smile at you in public when I'm passing you and say, hi, Mr. Z, how are you doing today? And keep it going, right? You don't have to stop and have a conversation with me. I don't have to be pleasant. I don't have to do any of the things my grandma used to do, my great-grandma used to do. I don't have to do any one of those things as a woman. But you as a man, if you see me on the side of the road with a flat tire, it's your job to stop and help me. You as a man, if you see me struggling with my bags coming out the grocery store, it's your job to help me. You as a man,
well,
if you see
let me ask you this. If one of your loved ones, a woman, your sister, your daughter, car breaks down on the highway, and a brother pulls up and it's snowing, whatever the situation might be, hazardous, a brother pulls up and says, come on, I'll give you a ride home, takes her home, doesn't ask for gas money. She offers to pay gas money. He says, no. Tell your husband to help another sister along the way. See, what you're talking about, you're an individual. It's all about you. You're not a part. It doesn't sound like you're a part of a family, because you can't be with your woman 24/7. So it'd be good to have camaraderie with men that would make sure the women are all right. And so I just can't seem to grasp what is your foundation.
I do think you might be missing
what is
what
your
I'm
foundation?
saying. I'm not.
What is your foundation?
What do you mean? I'm sorry about that. What do you mean? What is my foundation?
What is your foundation? What grounds you?
What grounds me to planet Earth, or what grounds me to the black community?
No, gravity is holding you on the planet, but I'm talking about you as an individual, you as a young man. I'm sure you have aspirations. What is driving you? What is your motivation?
My relationships. Your relationships to other people, to women, to friends, to other black men, to the overall society, and what I think I am supposed to do and what I am obligated to do for myself and for others. So that's what grounds me to the black community and to other black people. I do feel a sense of responsibility. I do think that you might be missing what I'm saying. I'm not advocating for these things. I'm telling you how it is post-1970. You're just seeing it worse now in 2021. But it's been like this for decades. And I'm telling you that as a person.
When you say it's been like, what exactly are you saying? Relationships between men and women?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, there are forever. There's been issues because we've allowed something foreign to come into our midst and dictate to us how we should live with one another. That's the problem, that you're not able to go with your own sensibilities and thrive. That's the problem. You know, we find ourselves trying to conform with society, the dictates of society. You know, so you have to get with yourself and be responsible for everything you think, speak, and act. You have to be responsible. But I don't want to preach, and I enjoy the
No,
conversation.
before you get off, I actually have a question before you get off, madam. And the question is, can someone describe something without being an advocate for it?
Absolutely. Sure. You're a witness to a lot of things that's going on on the planet that is not part of you. I've witnessed things that I would never think or do. So, yes, we can discuss things that absolutely.
That's all I think. Well, that's what I was attempting to do. My apologies if I sounded like I was advocating for this hyper individuality. If you ask Chaos, he's heard me in different panels. I am not that person. I often speak about how things affect other things, and how how systems affect people and how other people affect people. How a rock falls in the river or rock falls in the lake and it ripples out. That's how I speak. But maybe I'm speaking so well about it that it seems that I'm advocating. I'm not advocating for this weird social dystopia type of situation we have going on. My apologies.
All right. Well, you have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lady Ottawa. Is she gone?
Because
she's gone. Okay.
I'm here. I'm here.
How long you been listening? How long you been listening to the stream, Lady Ottawa?
Since you started.
All right, good. Thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
All right.
Yeah, that was interesting. Could we go widen it down, Mr. Z? Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, it's just I'm sorry about louder background now, but yeah.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I've gotten that multiple times, and maybe I have to work on my delivery with some of these things, because I think I describe things in a way that may seem that I'm advocating for these things. Short story, my parents are still married, 35 years. My girlfriend's parents, have been married for 39 years. Me and her both don't have children. Neither one of us has been married, and I'm happy for that. And it's interesting, for me to speak the way I do, to the point where people think that I might be advocating for some of these things. No, I'm describing what people are living. What's actually going on planet Earth, and the lady was correct that people are very hyper individualistic, and what I'm describing is what the consequence of that is. What the consequence of that is on your families, on your intimate and platonic relationships, with your friends, with your children. What is the price of this hyper individualistic mentality that we have permeating the entire culture right now, not just in the Black community? And what is the cost of modernity if you do not kind of put the safeguards in so that people don't have to deal with some of the worst and most pernicious effects of that, and I'm not Mr. Hopey Changey, right? I'm not Obama. I am the person that speaks very dark on purpose to scare the hell out of you, and then you make your decision after the fact. But
yeah,
I speak that verbose. I know I'm long-winded, and I understand that, but I speak the way I speak on purpose, because I think what we have and what we've been having for way too long, especially in America and in the Black community in America, is too many people making everybody try to make everyone feel okay about the dismal situation that we might find ourselves in. And I'm not about it. I'm about talking to adults like they're adults, like they can deal with a little bit of stress, and then, allowing you to make your decision after the fact. And hopefully you make a decision that's best for you and your family and the overall society, hopefully. But I am not about telling people, everything's fine and, everything's chocolate and rainbows. And, everybody else is doing that. I don't think I need to be another person doing that. And I'll pause right there.
Okay. Okay. Yes. This is good. This is good. I think I cover both from the male perspective content creators to the female side content creators, and I will say as person, Mr. Z, you're familiar with the Green Gorilla, right?
Oh, most definitely, yes. Shout out
Now
to
I
Green
remember he
Gorilla.
did
I've
a.
actually been on his panel a couple times.
I remember he did a stream focus on the mentality and psychology of both black man, black woman once they're entertaining interracial relationships or seeking non-black mates. His broadcast brought a balanced perspective between the mindset of the black man seeking non-black woman and a black woman seeking non-black man. But I've noticed from the female side of content creators that read France Fanon's work, and maybe I should do a stream on that personally on one side. But I've noticed some same women that use this as a weapon will point the fingers on the man in regards to his relationship with the non-black woman, but disregard the whole entire book and advocate that people should look into and read the whole book as entirety and understand from the psychological perspective through his own works in the field on the mindset of black people when it comes to white people or non-black people. Now,
Address that real quick, Chaos.
yeah.
You know, my apologies, brother. I think, and this is a Western phenomenon, but particularly in the black community, we need to speak to human beings like they're human beings, and not like they're Kryptonians or some super gods, right? And what has happened in the black community in particular is that we've got it in our minds that, and I think you've heard me say this, that black women are more moral, righteous, and virtuous than black men. They are more spiritual than black men. They are just better at adapting to, the mores of the times than black men. And what that has done is it's caused us to look at a black man doing something and a black woman doing something, the exact same thing, and say, well, he did this for negative, horrible reasons, but she did this because she had no choice. And I think that that's a major issue in the black community. When we speak about interracial relationships, oftentimes we speak about interracial relationships in this way, which is the black man is chasing after, hunting non-black women, particularly white women, because he hates what he sees in the mirror, because he has a problem with black women. He hates black women, or he hates his mother. He hates the black girls and women that he grew up around. But when a black woman dates out or marries out, she's doing it because she had no other choice, because black men are abusive, because black men weren't standing up, they weren't being responsible enough, because the black men around her were just horrible people, and she met this wonderful non-black man, probably a white man, that came and that, just swept her off her feet. And, I'm purposely being this obtuse. I know I'm being extra with my description, but
I mean, you can't be extra. I mean, that's just what it is. That's what it is. Continue.
And that's the narrative that's often put out. And I think when we do that, we're not being genuine about the fact that black people live in an anti-black society. And many of us have internalized that anti-blackness, and we seek the company of non-black people, and that's black men and black women. And so for much of the same reasons black men date and marry out, black women date and marry out, right? And I think going back to what you were saying about Frantz Fanon's book and Green Gorilla, we have a difficult time dealing with that. And so what I often do is I bring up other non-black people, so Asians and Latinos, and I talk about their interracial marriage rate. And you'll often see similar patterns, more exaggerated though. It's because, once again, like I said earlier, everybody's chasing after white. It's not just a black thing, right? And so if you're an American and you were told that, yeah, racism's an issue, but it ain't the issue. If you're an American and you were told that, and on the top of this pyramid scheme sits a bunch of white people, guess what your children are going to going to attempt to either be or be with. You know,
or emulate.
and we have to be or emulate exactly. And so when we see that with black men, when we see black men, you know, once again chase after these women or imitate the cadence of a white frat bro, or dress like a white frat bro, and his mannerisms are like a white frat bro, we know what that is. We completely understand why he's doing the things he's doing, and we have a language for that. But when it's the black woman, once again, because we have a difficult time believing that black women can be selfish also and be self-interested also, be, you know, calculated also, because we have a difficult time owning that when the black woman imitates a white valley girl, and when she has the mannerisms and she purposely adopts the cadence and the verbiage of a white valley girl, we then have a difficult time just admitting, oh, you just want to be white, right? And then when she goes to college and then comes back home with the white dude, we speak as though there weren't brothers chasing after her. Like, oh, she's with the white dude because you know ain't no black man was checking for her, right? And that may not be the case. She just might be the other side of the coin to her brother who's doing the same thing, you know? And I'll pause right there.
Yeah, man. But like I said, I might do a content on that, on the opposite side, when it deals with the black woman and non-black man, just for, you know, educational purpose. But I remember, like I said, the Green Gorilla covered both aspects, because you have to be balanced, anything you do. And if you're just talking about one side and then pointing it at all and that's it, right there, you're, like I said, we go back to the title of the story. Is content creators relevant? No, they're not, because they're not being honest on the whole information. I'm going to tell this and say this once and only once, that when you listen to content creators on YouTube, if they only talk about one side of the sexual aspect of an individual and leave out themselves, they're miseducated. They're telling a lie at the end of the day. And the reason why I do that is because it's all for beneficial in their pockets. That's it. They don't really care to inform you, because it pushes the narrative, it pushes the message, it pushes what we like to call propaganda. The same thing that the same non-black people that use the same media outlets and stuff to as propaganda towards us, we're doing it to ourselves, because we are self-hating, and with self-hatred leads to self-defeat and self-annihilation, which will lead to your suicide.
That's right.
Wait, who's that? Wait, somebody said something?
Can you tell me what book?
Stop. Nope, you have to raise your hand. Raise your hand, please. You cannot interrupt. Thank you. You there, Mr. D?
I'm here. I would like the young lady could speak.
No. Like she has to raise her hand again, because, like I said, I want to keep the calls structured. I don't want nobody to chime in. Do not do that. So later, if you want to call back in, you have maybe a minute or two, because now we're gonna wrap this up. Now, let's see if we can deal with the solutions part of most things. What solution in regards to the title at hand, and let me read the title again for most people to understand. Is content creators relevant for information? What conclusions you could... Wait, hold on. What is a green gorilla? Oh, I'm glad you asked, brother. Type his name up on YouTube. You'll find a brother named Green Gorilla, East Coast. Now, the solutions of anything, from your perspective, what solutions a person, man or woman, of any age, what should they, I'm going to say what tell people to do, but what in regards they could do now if they're absorbing or dealing with information through other content creators, what in their, I would say, what can they do with this information, or of anything, what should they really focus on, what things can they use or apply to information if they're getting it from content creators? That's my question. So let's be dealing with solutions. If they're going to take on information outside, reading the book or just listen to people. If you want
I
me to
would.
rephrase the question, go ahead.
No, I understand it. You don't need to rephrase it. I think you have to understand that people have their own biases or biases, and there are going to be supposed facts and data or that's said on all over social media, online. You have to be vigilant in looking what these people are saying up before you go out and spew it, out in the world. That's what I would tell people. Take the meat, and spit out the bones, because people have their own worldview, and oftentimes it's informed by childhood trauma or particular life events. And so what you want to do is see what they're speaking about, and if it's something that has anything to do with numbers, just look it up. If they say something, all of us have our cell phone in our hand 24/7. Look these things up and see if what they're saying is true, and whether it applies to you in your life, or you can take that information out into the world and make some use of it. But I think that's the greatest solution that I can give people. Are these content creators needed? Once again, yes and no, because most of the times you're just listening to them for entertainment and because you want to hear somebody say the same thing you believe anyway. I don't know how many of us are listening to content creators online to actually get some new information. And when I say information, I mean like new news, actual current events that affect your life or that will better put what you're living into perspective. Most of this is just entertainment. And people, like I said earlier, I think people are listening to these people just to have somebody who speaks better than you say the same thing you believe anyway. So, my solution, once again, if it's something that's data heavy or something that has to do with history or, anything that has to do with societal structure or how people are organizing themselves, look it up. That's what Google is for, and Yahoo and Bing and Safari and whatever else search engine you guys use. That's what those are for. And look it up and see if it applies and, how it fits into your life. And I'll pause right there.
I'd like to thank you, Mr. Z, for being a special guest for this broadcast. I have enjoyed your time. I have learned a lot. I have challenged you a lot as well. I think this is the first of many future interviews that I project since you're on this journey as a content creator that you're going to be experiencing. So I'm hoping that I made this interview on the subject worthwhile to you and something that you could probably learn. And, hey, maybe you might prepare for anybody that will ask even tougher questions than what I present to you tonight.
Well, thank you, Chaos, for having me on. This is my first official interview, everyone. So once again, I won't forget it. Thanks for having me on. And yes, it was a good interview. Thank the young lady for also speaking to me and challenging me a bit. And once again, like I said, describing things, not necessarily advocating for these things. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you very much.
All right. One thing, Mrs. Z, because if you can, email me the YouTube link one more time. I think I'm subscribed to your channel, but this will put in the description of this channel. Can you do that for me?
Yes, I can, and I can actually spell it out for people just in case they're looking for it.
Go ahead.
It is Blackn Effect. My bad. I'm sorry. I had something playing in the background. My apologies. My channel is Blackn Effect, and the way you spell it, I want to tell you the right way. BLACKN space .EFFECT. So that's Blackn Effect. I'm going to change that channel name eventually, and just streamline it and just make it Mr. Z, or Mr. Z Blackn Effect. But as of right now, you can find me on that channel. And once again, it's BLACKN space EFFECT.
All right. Okay. Yes. So like always, thank you again, Mr. Z. Like always, stay online for a few minutes. We're going, as I conclude, to talk off the line if possible. Just for a few minutes. Is that cool?
My apologies. Yes. That's okay. Yes, I can. Yes, okay.
Okay. Yeah. So like always, people subscribe to the channel, and I will say, Mr. Z in effect will be a suitable YouTube content name. But like I said, think about it because I like that better. But like always, and to all y'all that, I'm sorry, to everybody, thank you for listening to today's stream. If you're new to Cast Rain channel, please subscribe to the channel, hit the red button, and hit the top notification bell for all the latest, and I mean the latest streams and uploads on the Cast Rain channel. You can also follow me on Twitter at CastRain7 and add me as a friend at Facebook, Eric Rain on Facebook. I'd like to thank everybody for listening for tonight's stream. Tune in for the next stream. Until next time, take care and good night.
I'd like to thank Mr. Z as a special guest for tonight's stream. And like always, the description to subscribe to the brother's channel will be at the end of this stream. And like always, comment, subscribe, and like this video. You can now follow me on Twitter at ChaosRain7 and add me as a friend on Facebook, Eric Rain. Thank you for listening. Until next time, let it chaos reign.